And in studio now with us, as I mentioned, Francis Coots from the New York State Police Department. Welcome, officer. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, wait, got to have your mic. There you are, right there. Sorry.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
There you are. Very
we
good.
just talked to Samantha Wessing about the weather. Any weather-related incidents or maybe some tips for folks?
Slow down.
Yeah.
Think about winter weather driving. It always comes upon us, and we forget that we have to drive differently.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning, in Syracuse, they had the problem with the overpasses. It seems to happen there more often than on the regular roadways, I guess, right?
Clearly.
Yeah.
Those elevated roadways, they ice up a lot quicker.
For sure. Quite a topic to talk about. Last time I saw you in person, I was at the New Hartford Police Department for the press conference following the initial press conference following the events at the Word of Life Church in Chadwicks there, which has since exploded into a huge national story, of course, with national media showing up for this. The big question yesterday on the front page of the OD was, is it a cult? That's something we're going to examine with a cult expert coming up in about 20 minutes on the show, which will be very interesting for us and have some questions answered. What are the major questions that you are being asked by people about this case right now?
Well, they want to know why, and that's always the largest question. What is the motive? Why did this happen? Is there anything that we could have done to see something like this? And then ultimately, what could have we done as a society to prevent it from happening? Because you have to remember, there's a young man that's not alive anymore, and his brother is seriously injured.
Right. You know, and I was saying with Senator Griffo on Friday during the show that, you know, you have this policy post 9/11 about see something, say something. Many times people do see signs, whether it's something at this church or whether it was leading up to a shooting in a school. Usually there are signs that some of the perpetrators of these events do leave behind, and people see them, but they're sometimes shy to say something about them.
We all know that hindsight is 20/20, and I think that whatever the incident might be, somebody always says, geez, I wish I had said something because it seemed unusual to me.
Right.
And certainly we encourage people to call us if they find something suspicious. But in this situation, I don't know if there was anything that anybody could have done because it was held behind closed doors.
Right.
And the typical adage is you don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
And previous to Monday's situation, are you aware that state police have ever been called to the church?
No, they have not. With Chief and Sarah and Lieutenant O'Neill, we've been talking quite a bit. And they have been at the church a number of times, but they've always been called at the request of the church.
Right. Now, the church is closed to the public right now. There's a sign on the outside, as you well know. Does that mean that there couldn't be something going on the inside of the church with regard to the people that own the property and private meetings and the such? And do you monitor that type of activity now?
Absolutely not. Remember, this is a church, and they're still allowed to congregate and exist without the imposition of the government. And I believe that they're looking for their privacy now because, again, it's still a church that exists. I think we saw a couple of photographs that a Syracuse media had inside the church, and it was because the door was open, and I think they welcomed people. But right now, after this has happened, I think people are quite leery about that church.
Could any of these circumstances lend to the church being closed down for criminal activities or?
It will be a long investigation. New Hartford Police Department, the state police are working together on it. To get to that point, it might be a bit premature for me to say something like that, but we are certainly looking at any type of criminal conduct that's happening inside the walls of the church.
Sure, and something that Dave brought up, the see something, say something. Are there some tips out there for folks that may think that, something's going around or something wrong in their area or something suspicious about? What may be some of the factors that tip them off?
I wish I could answer that question. I mean, that's a difficult one because you have to remember the people that are in this church, they believe what they're doing is just and is right. To you and I, maybe it's not just and right, or it might be different than the way we live our lives. Nevertheless, is that if a neighbor feels that something is suspicious, certainly a child that they believe is being injured or is being harmed somewhat, please call 911.
I'm talking to Francis Coots from the New York State Police on the Talk of the Town, 100.7 FM WUTQ. The Leonards, of course, have been charged with manslaughter. Is that going to change? Is the charge going to change at all? Are you aware of that?
Speaking to Don Lupi and Scott McNamara with the District Attorney's Office, I know that we've already had a felony hearing. It's going to go to the grand jury, and the grand jurors will decide exactly who will be charged and what they'll be charged for.
All right, and then there are obviously others charged with assault. The Irwins themselves, who run the church and own the church, they're not charged at the moment. Is it possible that they could be brought into the legal situation here as well?
There's a number of people that are affiliated with the church that we certainly are looking at during the course of our investigation, but to single somebody out saying this person is being looked at or is being investigated for a specific charge, a bit premature. We'll wait and see what the grand jury has to say.
And are those folks being cooperative with you at this point, as far as you can say?
It's I don't want to use the word cooperative, but I don't want to say uncooperative either. There have been people that have been very helpful in the course of our investigation. There have been a number of people that have come out that were affiliated with the church but are no longer, that have helped us quite a bit. But for the actual events that took place last week or so, it's a long slug, and it's difficult getting some people to speak.
Making national news, like we said, this is the type of incident where you read in the paper, it doesn't happen here, and then again, it does. It happened right in, our backyard. So, what does that mean for you folks to try to put the pieces together?
I think we have to remember this is a great community. We all like living here.
Oh, yeah.
We like working here. We like worshiping here, and we like to go to school here. This is abhorrent behavior, and it does not indicate at all what the Mohawk Valley, the Utica area is like. Unfortunately, it did happen, and law enforcement is going to investigate it. And we're going to make sure that the people that did this are held accountable.
With regard to the injuries fatal to one child and obviously injurious to the other child, they're initially reported as having been caused by fists and feet and kicking and punching and things like that. Other weapons involved as well?
We're fairly confident there were some weapons involved. I don't want to say exactly what they are right now, but due to the extent of the injuries, the number of injuries that both children suffered, we're very confident.
All blunt trauma or some sharp objects being used as well?
It looked like it was all blunt trauma.
Interesting.
And with the investigation ensuing, do you feel that you've got the pieces in place and you've got most of the information you need, and now you're just going forward to put those together?
There's a lot of information, and like any complex investigation, it is like a puzzle. We have to make sure that all the pieces that we have fit together. So when Scott or Don, when they go in front of the grand jury, they get an indictment that's appropriate, and then ultimately, when this goes to court and goes to trial, we hold these people accountable, and they're convicted of the crimes for which they're charged.
We talked a lot about mental health issues in the area. Do you believe that there's been a spike in some of those mental health-related incidents?
I don't know if a spike is the right word. I think whenever you have something like this happen, people become more in tune.
They connect the two.
They do, and I believe that they're looking for some type of counseling.
Right.
It doesn't rise to the level of mental health and sickness and things of that nature. I don't know, but certainly there's enough resources out there that we utilize and that are very helpful during the course of these investigations.
Well, thanks for coming in. Really appreciate it. As I told you before you came on the show, we have a special guest coming up at 8 o'clock this morning who deals with cults, who's been doing it for a long time. He's nationally renowned in this area. He works for something called the Cult Education Institute in New Jersey. His name is Rick Ross. He'll be joining us on the phone. If you'd like to hang with us in studio and participate in that, you're free to do that, or just listen up, of course. I don't know what your feelings are, if you want some more information from him or just to listen in as a curious listener.
Thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely.